When you think about international diplomacy, you're probably picturing like stuffy meetings and super careful handshakes, right? But what happens when you throw a needle, some ink, and a massive cultural blunder into the mix? Today, we're unpacking the wild story of how a presidential trip ended with a permanent souvenir that made headlines all over the world.
So get this, French President Emmanuel Macron is off to Thailand. The whole point of the trip is your standard high-stakes diplomacy, strengthening ties, talking trade, all that good stuff. On the surface, it was just business as usual. But behind the scenes, things were about to get very, very weird.
Yeah, nobody's going to remember this trip for some trade deal or a new alliance. The souvenir Macron brought back wasn't something you can just, put on a shelf. It was something much more permanent.
He came back with this, a brand new tattoo, right on his face, in Thai script. Now, if you're like me and you don't read Thai, you're probably wondering, what kind of deep, profound message would a world leader choose to ink on his cheek forever?
Yep. You are seeing that correctly. That is the translation. The president of France flew home from a diplomatic mission with "I'm a stupid asshole" tattooed on his face. So the real question isn't if it happened, it's how in the world did this even happen?
Okay, let's break this down, because the story behind the ink is just this perfect storm of good intentions meeting some truly, truly terrible advice. It all went down during an informal cultural event, away from all the official buttoned-up meetings. President Macron was apparently encouraged by some locals to get a traditional tattoo, kind of like a sign of friendship. It was supposed to be this fun, spontaneous thing. The only problem? He had absolutely no idea what it actually said. And apparently no one on his staff did either.
So the second those press photos hit the wire, the internet just exploded. The reaction was instant, it was global, and it was loud.
Almost immediately, #TattooGate was trending everywhere, and public opinion was split right down the middle. On one side, you had people who just thought it was hilarious. A totally absurd human moment. But on the other, there was real outrage, with people seriously questioning the president's judgment and what this said about France's image on the world stage.
And of course, his political opponents jumped all over this. Macron's biggest rival, Marine Le Pen, wasted no time framing it as a national embarrassment. She basically called it proof of a major lack of presidential judgment.
This whole thing put the Thai government in a super awkward position. They had to step in and do this delicate diplomatic dance. They put out a statement clarifying that the tattoo was not an official gift and made a point of mentioning the need for cultural sensitivity, which, let's be real, is diplomatic code for, hey, maybe find out what you're doing before you do it. So with #TattooGate blowing up online and a diplomatic incident just simmering, the president's office had to move, and move fast. How do you even start to manage a crisis like this one? Macron's strategy was to just own it. He held a press conference, and he didn't try to hide or deflect. He called it a cultural misunderstanding, and even framed it as a personal lesson in humility, which you got to admit was a pretty smart move, mixing that public apology with a little bit of self-deprecating humor.
So, the official response from the Elysee Palace rolled out this classic three-step crisis plan. Step 1, acknowledge the mistake and apologize publicly to get some control over the story. Step 2, announce new sensitivity training for the diplomatic staff to show they're taking it seriously. And Step 3, signal a way out of this by saying they were looking into tattoo removal. But really, if you look past the memes and all the political drama, this whole fiasco is a fascinating lesson. It says so much about leadership and cultural exchange in this crazy, hyper-connected world we live in.
And this is really what it all boils down to, right? There is such a fine line between appreciating a culture and just misunderstanding it. The goal might be to build bridges, but if you don't have the full context, a well-meaning gesture can turn into an international incident, just like that. Macron's attempt to honor tradition, no matter how sincere he was, ended up becoming a global joke.
At the end of the day, this whole thing just goes to show how one single, impulsive choice can spiral into a worldwide conversation. It got everyone talking about what we expect from our leaders, what cultural respect actually means, and the fact that, for a public figure, there's really no such thing as a private mistake.
And that leaves us with a pretty interesting question to chew on. When we're trying to be open and connect with other cultures, how do we, not just leaders, but all of us, walk that razor-thin edge between genuine respect and a massive mistake? Where exactly is that line?